Evelyn had never liked the outskirts of town. The roads here were narrow, flanked by trees that leaned inward, their branches scratching the sky like desperate fingers. The sign for the Briarwood Hotel appeared suddenly, flickering neon letters buzzing in the foggy night. She slowed, gripping the wheel, and felt the first prickling unease. The hotel looked ancient, its stone facade cracked, ivy crawling across the walls, windows dark and lifeless. She parked in a lot overgrown with weeds. The air was unnaturally cold, even for December, and the faint smell of mildew and decaying wood clung to her jacket as she stepped out. The entrance loomed ahead, a grand doorway, but its once polished oak was chipped and scratched, as though resisting intrusion. The faintest echo of wind, or maybe something else, swayed through the broken glass above. Inside, the lobby was dimly lit by a single, swinging chandelier. Shadows clung to corners like creatures. Evelyn's footsteps echoed sharply across the marble floor, the sound too loud in the silence. Dust motes hung in the stale air. Everything smelled faintly of rust and old perfume, a lingering memory of people long gone. A bell stood on the front desk, dulled with age. She rang it once. Nothing. Twice. The sound resonated in the empty space, but no one came. Only then did she notice the faded "Welcome to Briarwood" plaque behind the desk, peeling at the edges, almost laughing at her in its silent neglect. She took a deep breath and tried to shake off the feeling of being watched. Her eyes scanned the lobby. A grand staircase led upward, the banister coated in a thick layer of dust. Chairs, covered with white sheets, sat like silent sentinels. An ornate carpet, patterned in deep red and gold, ran the length of the lobby, but it was faded and stained. Something about the patterns unnerved her. She couldn't tell if it was the colors or the way the shapes seemed to twist when she glanced away. Evelyn approached the reception desk. She was supposed to meet the previous night clerk, someone named Carl, to go over procedures. The hotel manager had promised him in person, but the office was locked. She tried calling his number, nothing but static. Unease settled in her stomach. Something wasn't right. As she walked toward the stairs, a faint thud echoed behind her. She froze. The sound came again, slow, deliberate, like a heavy footstep on wood. She spun around. Empty hallway. Nothing moved except for the shadow of the chandelier swinging slightly as if stirred by an invisible hand. Her phone buzzed. A message. Check the journal in the back room. Don't trust the corridors. Evelyn's pulse quickened. She had never received a message from anyone at the hotel, yet the number was local, precise. She followed a narrow hallway to a small storage room at the back. Inside, she found a leather-bound journal, its cover worn, corners chewed by time. Opening it, she read the first entry. Day 1. Shadows move when no one looks. The walls whisper names at night. I am alone, yet never alone. If you read this, leave immediately. The hotel does not forgive mistakes. The words prickled the back of her neck. She felt a cold gust brush past her, though the window was closed. A low hum vibrated through the floor. Curiosity mixed with fear. She explored further. Each room was worse than the last. Furniture overturned as if tossed by a storm, mirrors cracked with dark veins running through them, walls scratched with symbols she didn't recognize. Sometimes, she thought she saw figures standing in the corners, vanishing when she blinked. The clock in the lobby struck midnight. The chimes sounded hollow, distorted, almost mocking. Evelyn's reflection in the polished elevator door twisted. She blinked and saw a smile that wasn't hers. Panic surged, but she forced herself to stay calm. She had to log in, had to work the night. In the dining hall, the smell of decay grew stronger. Chairs were arranged in rows, facing the walls, as if the room had been prepared for an audience long dead. On the table, she noticed a black circular symbol drawn in ash, the same as the one the journal mentioned later. A sudden clatter made her spin. The chandelier swayed violently, casting long, dancing shadows. She could swear she heard breathing that didn't match her own. Evelyn realized the truth, though her mind struggled to accept it. This hotel was alive, and it hated being alone. Every creak, every whisper, every flicker of the lights was deliberate, watching, calculating. The night shift wouldn't be just a job, it was a test. One she feared she might not survive. Outside, the wind howled through the empty parking lot. Inside, Evelyn could feel the corridors shift subtly, doors slightly misaligned, hallways stretching beyond logic. She tried to call the front desk, the number now dead. The journal slipped from her hands, opening to a page she hadn't seen before. By midnight it begins. The hotel decides who stays, who becomes part of it. Do not linger. Do not tempt it. She swallowed hard hammering. The shadows seemed to lean closer, pressing against her consciousness, whispering in a voice she almost recognized, hers, but distorted. Her pulse thumped louder than the silence that surrounded her. Evelyn understood then, the first rule of surviving the night shift: never trust what you see, never trust what you hear, and never, ever, think you are alone. As the first hour of her shift crept forward, the hotel seemed to exhale, a low groan vibrating through the floorboards, as if welcoming her into its cold, waiting embrace. She wasn't just an employee tonight. She was prey. And the night had only just begun. By the second hour of her shift, Evelyn's unease had transformed into something sharper, more urgent, a gnawing certainty that the hotel was actively observing her. Every hallway she passed seemed longer than it should be, the end always just out of reach. The dim lights flickered in rhythm with her heartbeat, and sometimes, in the corner of her eye, shadows seemed to stretch unnaturally, leaning toward her, then snapping back when she looked directly. She tried to rationalize it. Old buildings groan. Wind rattles doors. Mirrors distort light. Yet deep down, she knew the explanations were thin, fragile. Something here was alive. Something malevolent. Evelyn returned to the storage room to reread the journal. The entries had become more frantic over time, written in uneven, trembling handwriting. I hear them moving when I sleep. They are everywhere. The hallways shift at night. Sometimes I see them staring through walls. I am not sure they are waiting for me, or for someone else. God help whoever reads this. The words pressed against her mind like a warning etched in fire. She shivered and closed the book, sensing movement behind her. The hallway beyond the storage room was dark, but the air shimmered slightly, like heat over pavement. A figure stepped forward, a shadowy silhouette, vague and blurred, without clear features. Evelyn froze. It didn't move like a human. Its steps were silent, yet deliberate, following her. She spun around, but the hallway was empty. The figure wasn't gone, it was waiting. She forced herself to move, taking shallow, careful steps toward the lobby. Each room she passed had something wrong with it. Chairs rearranged themselves when she glanced away. Mirrors reflected not her, but glimpses of others, people in tattered clothes, faces pale, eyes black as coal. She thought she recognized a man she'd seen on the security feed, the previous night clerk Carl. But when she blinked, he was gone. The elevator groaned. Evelyn stepped inside, intending to check the upper floors. The doors shuttered closed, and she realized the floor numbers didn't match the panels. 5 became 7, 2 became 4, a sequence with no logic. The elevator jolted violently, stopping between floors. Darkness pressed against the glass. A low whisper filled the shaft, almost too faint to hear. You shouldn't be here. Evelyn's stomach dropped. The voice wasn't human. It was layered, multiple tones speaking at once, merging and splitting. Panic surged, but she forced herself to steady her breathing. She had to understand the hotel, or she wouldn't survive the night. When the elevator shuttered open, she stepped onto the 7th floor. The corridor stretched endlessly in both directions, lined with doors that seemed familiar yet impossible. One door at the end was ajar, light spilling from within, a warm, inviting glow in the otherwise oppressive darkness. She approached cautiously. Inside, the room was a perfect replica of the lobby. Everything pristine, untouched by time. A figure sat at the front desk, head lowered. Evelyn called out, "Hello? Are you?" The figure lifted its head. It wasn't human. Its face was an empty void, features smeared as though painted in shadow. A guttural, inhuman voice echoed. "They never leave." The lights flickered. The room twisted. Evelyn stumbled backward. The door slammed shut behind her, though she hadn't touched it. She banged against it, heart racing, but it wouldn't open. Her reflection in a nearby mirror showed herself, and dozens of others, trapped behind her, screaming silently. She managed to pry the door open, stumbling into the hallway. The sound of distant footsteps followed her. Not hers. Something else was pacing the corridors, always behind her, never closing the gap. She ran to the lobby, only to find the front doors had vanished. The heavy oak entrance she had entered through now led to a brick wall. Panic surged into raw, burning fear. Evelyn grabbed the journal again, skimming frantically. Another page had appeared, freshly inked. "If you hear footsteps, do not look back. If you see shadows, do not follow them. They are not here to kill you, they are here to keep you." Her pulse raced. Her hands trembled. She realized the truth. The hotel didn't just haunt its night staff, it manipulated reality. Hallways shifted, rooms doubled or vanished, and the shadows were extensions of something far older, far smarter, and far more patient than she could imagine. Then came the sound of laughter. Quiet, almost playful, echoing from every corner at once. Evelyn froze, straining to locate it. It wasn't coming from anywhere. It was coming from the hotel itself. A cold wind rushed through the lobby, though no doors were open. Papers swirled in the air, forming shapes, faces, contorted in silent screams. The chandeliers swung violently, almost as if stirred by invisible hands. The whispers intensified, overlapping with low growls, until every nerve in her body screamed to run. But there was nowhere to run. She sank to the floor, clutching the journal, whispering to herself, "This is just a building. This is just a building." A shadow detached itself from the far wall, coalescing into a vaguely humanoid shape, stretching toward her. Its fingers were long, impossibly thin, reaching with deliberate slowness. Evelyn's mind raced. Every instinct screamed to flee, yet the hallways shifted again, trapping her. As the figure drew closer, she realized the final horror of her situation. The hotel didn't just scare, it tested, hunted, and absorbed. Every night shift was a trap, and every trapped clerk became part of the hotel, feeding its hunger. The shadows weren't alone, they were the remains of those who had failed before her. Evelyn's scream caught in her throat as she scrambled to her feet, running blindly down the corridor. Doors slammed open and shut, each one a false promise of escape. Mirrors reflected not her path, but endless repetitions of herself, her terror multiplied infinitely. The hotel had claimed its first confrontation, and Evelyn knew, deep down, it wouldn't be her last. Evelyn's lungs burned with every ragged breath as she stumbled down corridors that seemed to stretch beyond reason. Each hallway she ran through no longer followed the architecture she had seen earlier. Walls bent at impossible angles, staircases twisted in loops, and doorways opened into rooms that shouldn't exist. Every step she took felt like sinking deeper into the building itself. The shadows had grown bolder. They weren't just in the corners anymore, they moved with purpose, sometimes ahead of her, sometimes behind, always watching. She could hear faint whispers, almost human in tone, muttering her name, recounting memories that weren't hers. "Evelyn, don't look, you'll join us." The words echoed in 1,000 variations, merging with the low, constant hum that now seemed to come from the walls themselves. She ducked into a room on the second floor. It appeared to be a hotel suite at first glance, faded wallpaper, a small bed, a dresser. But the room was alive. The mirror reflected her movements a second too late, and when she glanced up, the reflection smiled at her before she did. On the bed, dozens of small, shadowy figures writhed and twisted like ink in water, their tiny, featureless faces pressing toward her, silent cries piercing her mind. Evelyn stumbled backward, her hand catching on the dresser. A drawer slid open on its own, revealing a stack of photographs. She picked one up, grainy, black and white. The image showed a group of night clerks, each with eyes blackened like coal, trapped in a distorted hallway that now seemed identical to the one she had just left. She recognized Carl, the previous clerk, and her stomach dropped. That could be her next reflection. The room itself seemed to pulse. The floorboards groaned under invisible weight, and the wallpapered walls subtly shifted, stretching and compressing as if the building were breathing. The journal fell from her hands, flipping open to a page she hadn't seen before. The hotel does not take kindly to hesitation. Shadows are not threats, they are guides. Follow their steps or become their companion. Her heart pounded. She wanted to run, but the hallway outside now opened into a corridor she had never seen before. The walls were lined with doors, all slightly ajar. From behind each, a voice whispered a different version of her name, urging her to enter. Fear warred with curiosity, but a primal instinct screamed to resist. She moved forward cautiously, glancing into the first room. Inside, she saw herself sleeping in the bed, eyes wide open, mouth screaming silently. She blinked, and the figure was gone. A chill ran down her spine as she realized that the hotel didn't just observe, it duplicated reality, bending her perception and planting illusions designed to fracture her mind. The next door revealed a dining hall frozen in time. Tables were set for a meal long abandoned, plates chipped, silverware tarnished, food decomposed into unidentifiable black sludge. Figures sat at the tables, their heads bowed. Evelyn's gaze fell on one of the diners. It was her, hunched and silent, joined by dozens of others. They didn't notice her presence. They were already part of the hotel, existing in a state of perpetual horror. A sudden slamming noise echoed from the hallway. Evelyn spun. The doors behind her were gone, replaced by an endless black void that seemed to hum with malevolent life. The whispers intensified, now joined by a low growl vibrating through her chest. Something was moving within the shadows, a presence that was not bound by walls or floorboards, something ancient and aware of her fear. She ran again, breath ragged, but the corridors twisted impossibly, doors multiplying, halls looping back to where she had just been. Every turn brought new horrors. Mirrors showing her face disintegrating. Faint screams echoing from rooms she had never entered. Figures pressed against glass panes, their mouths open in silent terror. Evelyn's mind teetered on the edge of collapse. The hotel was testing her, probing her fears, pushing her toward panic. Her thoughts scattered, reality had fractured. Every whisper, shadow, and reflection seemed alive, aware of her internal struggle. She stumbled into the grand ballroom. The vast space was empty, yet the air was thick with tension, vibrating as if the walls themselves were conscious. Chandeliers swayed violently despite the absence of wind. On the far side, a massive black circle had appeared on the floor, the same symbol she had glimpsed in the lobby. It pulsed softly, as if drawing energy from the room itself. From the shadows, a figure emerged, tall, indistinct, human only in shape. Its face was a shifting void, glimpses of all those trapped inside flickering in its features. It raised a hand slowly, pointing toward her. Evelyn's body froze. She understood, with horrifying clarity, this was the hotel made flesh, the entity she had been running from. It had been shaping every corridor, every shadow, every whisper to test her, seeing if she would break. Her voice trembled. What do you want? The figure didn't answer. Instead, the walls around her seemed to close slightly, corridors folding inward, shadows creeping closer. She realized the truth. The hotel didn't simply haunt its victims. It fed on fear, it shaped reality, and it trapped souls within its structure. Escape was no longer a matter of doors or windows. It was a matter of survival, sanity, and sheer will. A distant chime rang. Midnight again, though she had lost all sense of time. The entity moved closer. Evelyn's chest tightened as the shadows swirled around her, whispering every name she had ever loved, every memory she cherished, twisting them into a tapestry of terror. She screamed, not for help, but in defiance, a desperate attempt to assert her reality against the hotel's control. The shadows recoiled slightly, as if acknowledging her resistance. But deep down, Evelyn knew, this confrontation was only the beginning. The hotel had revealed its first layer of horror, but the true descent, the complete domination of mind and body, was still ahead. She backed toward the exit she hoped still existed. Every step forward was a gamble. Every corridor might loop her back into the entity's embrace. The hotel was alive. It was patient. And it would not let her leave. Evelyn understood one undeniable fact. Tonight she had become part of the test. And if she failed, she would never be alone again. By now, Evelyn's fear had evolved into a cold, burning determination. Every hallway she had fled through had been a test, and she understood that the hotel's true intent was no longer subtle. It was a predator, patient and cunning, bending reality to trap her mind and body. Every corridor, every door, every reflection had been designed to break her, but she refused. She descended to the basement, where the air was thick with dampness and decay. The shadows here were heavier, almost tactile, brushing against her skin like cold fingers. A low hum reverberated from the walls, vibrating through the floor and into her bones. In the center of the basement, she saw it, a massive ritual chamber, its floor etched with the black symbols she had glimpsed throughout the hotel. Candles, long burned to stubs, were scattered around a circle of ash and charred wood. The entity manifested fully before her. It was tall, humanoid in shape but shifting and fluid, its surface rippling with countless faces of past victims, screaming, silent, pleading. Its presence warped reality. Walls stretched, shadows twisted into grotesque shapes, and the very air seemed to press against her lungs. "You shouldn't have come here," it whispered, not with words, but directly into her mind, layered with the voices of everyone trapped inside. "You belong to me now." Evelyn's pulse raced, but she forced herself to stand. She had glimpsed the journal's final entry, instructions, cryptic but clear. To resist, you must confront the source. Do not flee. Do not fight with force, fight with understanding. With trembling hands, she circled the symbol on the floor, trying to memorize every mark, every line. The entity followed her movements, its presence growing oppressive, tendrils of darkness curling toward her. Each pulse of her heartbeat seemed amplified, echoing in the chamber, fueling the entity. Suddenly, visions flooded her mind. She saw the previous night clerks, including Carl, trapped and screaming silently, their forms absorbed into the walls, floors, and shadows. The hotel had collected them all, folding their consciousness into itself. Each step they had taken, each fear they had experienced, had strengthened it. Evelyn realized the horrifying truth: the hotel was eternal, and it was patient. Its hunger never ended. The entity lunged, not physically, but psychically. Evelyn felt her mind stretch, her memories twisting, trying to merge her consciousness with the countless others trapped. She staggered, screaming in defiance, clawing at the air as if trying to tear herself free from the invisible grip. In a moment of clarity, she remembered the final instruction in the journal. Do not resist blindly. Accept the fear, but do not surrender to it. Evelyn closed her eyes, breathing slowly. She let the terror flow through her, acknowledging it without panic. She visualized the entity not as a threat, but as a force she could navigate. When she opened her eyes, she took a bold step toward it, her voice steady despite the terror. I know what you are. I see you. But I will not let you claim me yet. The entity recoiled slightly, its form flickering, faces wailing in distortion. Evelyn pressed on, tracing the symbol on the floor with her hands. The air thickened, reality rippling, walls bending around her. She repeated the phrase silently. I see you. I exist. You do not control me. For a moment, the entity's tendrils of darkness hesitated, then retracted. The chamber became eerily still. Evelyn's hands hovered over the center of the symbol. She could feel the pulse of the hotel, its hunger, its patience, its awareness. And she realized she couldn't destroy it. She could only survive. But survival came at a cost. As she stepped away, the walls shifted again. Shadows from the corners crept toward her, and whispers returned, softer now, almost mournful. She understood the truth. She had won only a temporary reprieve. The hotel had tested her and accepted her as another participant in its eternal cycle, but she had not been absorbed yet. For now. Evelyn stumbled toward the stairwell leading up, her body trembling with exhaustion and relief. The corridors she passed seemed less hostile, but she could sense the entities still present, lurking, waiting. She had faced it directly and survived, but she knew the final confrontation, the point where escape or assimilation became inevitable, was still ahead. The journal slipped from her hands once more, opening to a page that hadn't existed before. Survival is temporary. The hotel remembers. The night is endless. The shadows wait. Her chest heaved. She had confronted the core of the hotel, but the victory felt hollow. The ritual chamber, the symbol, and the entity were proof of something far older than her understanding, far darker than she had imagined. She was alive, but the hotel had claimed a piece of her, subtle yet permanent, woven into the shadows, watching, anticipating the next night shift. Evelyn realized then that she had crossed a threshold. The night shift was no longer just a job, it was a test of endurance, sanity, and cunning. One misstep, one lapse of courage, and the hotel would finish what it had started. She ascended the stairwell slowly, every step heavy with dread. She was not free. She was not safe. But for now, she had faced the horror head-on, and lived. And as the first hints of dawn approached, the entity's whispers faded into the corners of her mind, promising the inevitable, the night would return. The hotel was silent. Or at least, it seemed silent. The corridors were dim, the chandeliers swaying slightly as if sighing in relief, or amusement. Evelyn emerged from the stairwell, her body trembling, her skin slick with sweat and cold. She had survived the entity's direct confrontation, navigated the shifting labyrinth, and lived through the deepest layers of its terror. But the relief was fragile, fleeting. She sensed the subtle, insidious truth, she was already changed. Shadows seemed to cling closer, mirrors lingering a moment too long on her reflection, and the low hum of the building vibrated through her chest. A whisper drifted along the walls, faint but unmistakable. "You belong here now." Evelyn tried the front doors. The grand oak entrance she had entered hours, or was it days, ago was gone. In its place was a solid brick wall. Panic surged, raw and unfiltered. Every instinct screamed to escape, but the reality was cruelly obvious. The hotel did not release its night clerks once it had claimed them. The corridors twisted endlessly, looping her back to the lobby, which now felt smaller, tighter, and suffocating. She stumbled to the reception desk, gripping the journal, her hands shaking. The pages had multiplied overnight, filled with more warnings, more frantic entries from clerks she didn't recognize, some she recognized from the shadows, their faces twisted in silent screams. She flipped through a page that chilled her to the bone. The hotel chooses its prey. Survive tonight, and you are merely a guest in its labyrinth. Fail, and you are absorbed forever. Each night it waits. Each night it remembers. Evelyn sank to the floor, head in her hands. She realized the inescapable truth. The hotel had already claimed part of her soul. Her mind, sharpened by terror and resolve, had survived, but the building had woven itself into her essence. Shadows whispered her thoughts back to her, not mocking, but patient, like a predator waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Outside, the first weak light of dawn touched the edges of the parking lot. Evelyn thought she might have a chance. Perhaps the day could free her. She ran to the lot, chest burning, hands trembling. But the parking area had changed. Overgrown weeds now stretched taller than she remembered. The neon sign flickered, spelling letters that weren't right. Welcome. Forever. A new car pulled into the lot. A young man, carrying a bag, approached the hotel doors with the same naive determination Evelyn had felt hours before. She knew him instantly, not personally, but by the pattern she had come to understand. Another night clerk, another prey. Evelyn tried to call out, to warn him, but her voice caught in her throat. It wasn't fully hers anymore. The shadows within the hotel whispered a counterpoint in her mind. Silence is mercy. Do not intervene. She watched helplessly as he stepped through the doors. The entity would begin its ritual again, reshaping corridors, testing fears, feeding on terror. Evelyn knew what awaited him, and what awaited her should she falter in the slightest. The hotel exhaled. The walls pulsed faintly, alive, patient, eternal. And for the first time, Evelyn understood that the night shift was never about survival. It was about contribution. Every clerk trapped inside became part of the entity, another shadow, another whisper, another face in the endless maze. Her reflection in a nearby window rippled. For an instant, she saw herself among the countless others trapped within the hotel's structure, screaming silently. She pulled back, chest heaving, but could feel it, the hotel's presence inside her, subtle, inseparable. Evelyn wandered the lobby, circling the black symbol drawn faintly in the dust. The journal lay open before her, pages fluttering though there was no wind. She realized that she would never leave. The night had not ended. The entity was patient. It was eternal. And now, so was she. The camera, or her perspective, for it felt like the world itself was observing, panned to the entrance. The new clerk disappeared through the doors. The shadows followed. The whispers returned, soft, patient, promising the same fate for anyone else who dared step inside. Evelyn's last thought, fading as the first full hour of night descended again, was a simple, horrifying acknowledgement. She was alive. But she would never truly be free. And the hotel waited.